All right, welcome. Welcome to this online seminar on mentoring in detention settings. My name is Mara. I'm the CEO and founder of Richtungswechsel, an Austrian organization. We've been doing this project, and I'm here with my colleague Tabea, and I'm handing over to you now.
Good morning, everybody. As Tamara just introduced me, my name is Tabea. I'm a project assistant at Richtungswechsel, and I will introduce you to our mentoring blueprint that we just created for our M-PAVE project, which is wait a second, my slide is not changing.
No worries.
Now. Perfect. Which is a small-scale partnership of Richtungswechsel and Promimpresa in Italy, and we were kindly supported by Sindbad as well as Unlock Graduates. And yes, first of all, we would ask you to fill in our pre-questionnaire. So you could just scan the QR code and answer our questions. That would be great.
I also see developing new leadership. Brilliant. And now we'll go to the next question. Thank you for, we've got some more. Great. I love it. Support is big. Also for those who don't usually use word clouds, the ones that are the biggest are also the ones that are submitted most often. So we've got education and support there. Then please rate the statements from left, strongly disagree, to right, strongly agree. So I feel confident in supporting detention staff in the mentoring role. And I find mentoring crucial for staff working in detention settings. So you can put the slider on and then submit it, and then we can see where we're at with the group. Brilliant. You can see people find it generally crucial, which is probably why you're here, which is great. Give the last person a couple more minutes. And then we'll go to the next slide. It's the last question for the start. And that is attribute 100 points between the aspects of mentoring that you find most challenging. So we've got setting boundaries, we've got building trust, we've got active listening, we've got giving feedback, handling conflict or other aspects. And you can give as many points from 0 to 100 to the ones that you find most challenging, the biggest challenge within mentoring. So if you think 3 things are equal, then you can give, 30 points each and then maybe 10 to another, or you can just give lesser points than 100 as well. So please submit your thoughts. The most with building trust as a challenge. Yeah, that is definitely something that is the most crucial in a way, because you have to have that mentoring relationship. And we talk a lot in these environments about relationships, right? So it's really, really important that this is not only about the relationships between people incarcerated and staff working there, but also amongst the staff as well. Just give another moment. Interesting, giving feedback there as well. Setting boundaries with the least points. Handling conflict. Interesting. All right. I will stop sharing again then and hand back over to you, Tabea.
So thank you so much for your active participation. And as we all could see, we do think mentoring is crucial in the prison context, which is why Yes, we wanted to go over it again, since we do face many challenges within detention facilities, which are far-reaching, from high turnover rates within staff, over burnout, limited support for staff within detention facilities, as well as diminishing quality of detention environments. So the aim of our M-PAVE project is to improve working conditions within detention facilities, ensure structured guidance for staff and for new staff as well, and also to prevent burnout and bore out. I don't know if you're all familiar with the term bore out. It describes of getting bored, basically, of your day-to-day task and work. So our approach within our mentoring approach is to train the trainer approach. So we came up with a blueprint or framework to guide trainers for prospective mentors. So we do came up with expert-led mentoring workshops and trainings to create a sustainable and multidisciplinary transfer of knowledge throughout generations of staff as well. So our vision is to empower the workforce and to enhance job satisfaction of everybody involved in detention facilities, and to also improve recruitment and labor market to combat challenges such as limited staff and staff shortage. So the objectives of our project is to develop and implement a structured mentoring training program for detention staff, which is based on existing evidence on mentoring and job satisfaction. Yeah, we were kindly supported by Unlocked and Sindbad for that matter, and also by many professionals in the field. Yeah, so the training aims to equip staff with key competencies, which reach from emotional intelligence over to conflict resolution, providing feedback, as we saw already that some of you do think that is a very important skill to have, as well as effective communication. So basically, all the soft skills we do need to address the unique challenges that staff is facing working in detention facilities. By training existing detention staff as mentors, the project tries to enhance professional development opportunities, and thus we're coming back to this sustainable aspect of our mentoring framework, because we want to promote continuous learning and collaboration within detention facilities and within generations of staff. Our target groups are, first of all, frontline detention staff, so those who are in contact with the inmates on a daily basis. We want to enhance their skills, from soft skills to hard skills, to address physical and psychological challenges they face. A second group would be existing mentors, so we try to empower existing mentors further to support their skills that might already be there, but we just want to support them even further, and also to strengthen an overall support network, so within detention facilities. So trying to get mentors into touch, trying to learn from best practices, trying to learn from other mentor cultures as well. And then we also try to reach out to external experts, just to, yes, learn from best practices, as I said, to integrate and to adapt to different European detention systems, and to have a far-reaching framework that you all could maybe use. And then we're going over to our actual framework, so to the mentoring blueprint, which is a validated curriculum for mentor training that integrates best practices. So the blueprint is designed to guide teams in developing a clear and effective training manual for mentoring detention staff. The manual is aimed at trainers who will teach mentoring to learners. So we're coming back to the train the trainer aspect, and it's supposed to provide core theoretical understanding that learners need to understand, and that mentors need to also put into action. We also equipped the framework with a lot of practical activities and exercises to come from the theory to practice and to support that transition. And it's meant to support trainers with guidance, questions, and also prompts to tailor to specific settings, to cultural differences, to each and every European context. Yeah, so we tried to we try to create a flexible framework that trainers can adapt to, rather than have it a rigid, this is the way to go, the only way to go, this is not what we wanted, but to have it more flexible. So our framework is structured as follows. We're going to start in each and every module with a learning outcome so that the trainers and learners already have an overview of what they're going to learn, what they need to know, what they need to understand. Then we move over to some core theory content, which is clear and focused explanations of essential concepts, containing specific questions, and yes, just to create some theoretical understanding and consistency. We also gonna give you the references to our sources so that you could also check on yourself or read something if you haven't really got it so far. Then we have suggested practice activities, as I just said, which are interactive practical exercises to have a smooth transition from the core theoretical content to actively developing mentoring skills such as active listening or conflict resolution, feedback giving, and so on. Then we go over to trainer notes and guidance, which is just supposed to provide you with tips and reminders for the trainers on how to facilitate the modules effectively. Yes, so this section includes ways to adapt our framework to different learner groups or to different cultural contexts. And last but not least, we also had the resources and references we were using to set up our framework. We also wanted to provide you with a little overview of our modules that are going to be present in the framework. The framework is going to start with the foundations of mentoring in detention facilities, which will also include a little section about scenario-based learning. Scenario-based learning will provide you with the skills that you have a almost real-life scenario of detention facilities, and you could just practice with these to develop your skills even further. The module is meant to define mentoring, its purpose, and its scope within detention facilities. In the second module, we're going to go over the role of the mentor. So we try to clarify the mentor's identity, the roles, its limitations, as well as ethical boundaries. Then we're going to talk about mentoring skills and competencies. So then we go over to the soft skills. How could we build effective communication? How could we provide feedback? How could we resolve a conflict? And what is active listening? And how can we practice that in our day-to-day work? Then we go over to mentoring models and structures. So we try to understand delivery formats, so the difference between peer mentoring or to internal and external mentoring. So we're going to explain that also in a couple of slides. And then we try to go over to mentoring and context, so challenges and opportunities within detention facilities, so that the learners will try to understand what are structural problems that mentoring can help to solve and why do we need mentoring within detention facilities. The last module will cover designing and facilitating mentoring trainings. So this is just trainer focused. So the trainers who would train the mentors can then understand how could I evolve this effectively within detention facilities. And then we go over to mentoring sessions, and I give the floor to Tamara.
Thank you so much, Tabia. And I just wanted to add, if you just go back to one slide to the modules. So you can see, sorry, that's, yeah, perfect, thank you. You can see here that what is really, really crucial, and you've said it, Tabia, is that in many detention settings, we often see that the staff don't have the time to reflect, and they don't get the time to perhaps even think about new ways, new opportunities of how they can act, what they can do, how they can achieve certain change. And mentoring is exactly that opportunity to enhance the skills of the mentees. And we see that if the mentors are also supported and trained well, it's kind of that trickling down approach. So that's why we wanted to make sure that the mentors are trained in a way that is meaningful, in a way that they also understand how they can run proper mentoring sessions, what that would look like, what kind of guidance they will need, what different types of mentoring formats there are, which I will speak about, as you said, Tabia, in a moment. And you will receive, after this seminar, you'll receive this presentation, but also we will put the full manual with all the modules on our website, and we'll share that with you, and you can download also the separate modules there, and we're happy to support implementation because we see that we've already started piloting some of these sort of mentoring approaches, and also we've been using scenario-based learning quite a lot for training, and it's working especially well in detention settings because scenario-based learning and like really understanding how you would perceive a situation, how you would then react to a situation can really teach you in adapting perhaps your reactions in a way, and also having the space to think in situations, because quite often what we see too is that we have a lot of PowerPoint training. In England, sometimes this is referred to as death by PowerPoint, because you are just sitting there, similarly to this seminar, I guess, but we're in a different, this is thankfully not a whole day situation, but you're just listening in, which obviously does give you some insights, learning, etc., but it doesn't embed the learning meaningfully in settings where you have to react quite quickly. So it's really about supporting the mentors and having that trickling down approach to the mentees eventually. And another crucial point that I wanted to add is that when the staff are supported well, that is also when you get higher and better outcomes for the people that the staff work with, whether that's in incarcerated people, whether that is in youth facilities, we see that as well. So there's a quite large effect on that, and that's why we were really advocating for that mentoring. And I just wanted to add that. And as I said, if you are interested to implement it, test the framework, then please let us know. Thank you, Tabea. If you want to skip to the next slide after that, perfect. So as already prompted, we've been also working on different mentor types. So when we looked into the existing mentoring in detention settings across Europe, we identified the following types. I will start on the left top, so the internal. I think these names that we gave the mentoring types can be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try and analyze it with you and give it to you in a in a forward way. So first of all, internal means that is a professional mentor, so somebody who is a dedicated mentor, and that's their specific role in the prison. It could be, it could be a part-time role, it could be a full-time role, depending on the size of the facility, whether that's, as I said, could be detention houses, could be prison facilities, could be sort of other halfway houses or something else. And the mentor is their role, and they are based and come from the same institution as the mentee. So they understand the environment, they understand the staff, they already know the colleagues, etc., very well, and can give the mentee usually that onboarding support, the connection support, the guidance at the start, but also later on in terms of career development. The second type that we identified is internal, external. This refers to somebody, again, a dedicated mentor, somebody who is specifically recruited for the role as a mentor and trained, but is internal to the service, for example. So whether that's prison service or some other sort of, different detention house settings, but doesn't specifically work in that detention house. So they are external to that environment where they now will work as a mentor. This has been common in the Unlocked Graduates program, for example, which Tabea already mentioned had been supporting us. And they actually have secondments for mentors. So that means that somebody who is usually working in a different prison, in that case, in England, is then trained and supported to become a mentor for 2 years for the time of the secondment in a different prison. And then after the 2 years, they go back to their regular work in their prison where they usually work. This has the benefit that the mentor is removed in a way from the day-to-day of that prison, from certain relationships within and between colleagues and so on, and the mentee can better build the trust with that person. At the same time, they are internal in a way that they understand the system, they understand what kind of support is needed, they do understand the structures, they can still help with development, whether that's personal or career development or training opportunities. So it really has a benefit of bridging that gap whilst also being able to be a transparent and trusting sounding board. You can obviously have the same trusting relationships with internal mentors. However, there it can be tougher because the mentees don't know how this person might be involved and who they know within the prison or within the detention house, and that can then result in less trust, or at least it takes more time to build that trust. Then we've also identified 2 external mentor types. Both, as it says, are external to the service or the system and external to the specific detention facility. But we've noticed that there's also 2 kind of types. So one is more on the coaching side in a way. So that is somebody who's really entirely external. They might be experts in management, in personal development, or something similar to that. And they are dedicated professional mentor, usually for a certain period of time, that supports the staff in a detention facility. And they don't know much about what's going on in detention facilities, but they understand organizational development, personal development. So that can be a benefit if you need sort of more perspective, let's say, if you are looking for a very specific outcome within your staff group as well. And then the second version of the external mentors is somebody who has previous experience of working in detention settings, but is now not part of that system anymore and is not working in that specific institution, either in that specific detention facility anymore, but now returns returns to the service as a mentor. So they understand the system already, they have that experience. It's potentially not up to date in a way anymore, but they do understand the ins and outs that the mentee might be going through. This can help when you need somebody who has kind of that professional distance and can push the mentee without worrying about the mentees not taking the mentor seriously because of a lack of experience. So that's more of the issue with the first version, that can be somebody where the mentees just kind of don't engage much because they don't feel like that person understands what I'm going through, what the job is like. They give me advice, but it's not really applicable. So as I said, that external version 1, it's really, really important that is for a very specific reason. Let's say, it could be at a certain part of the detention facility. It can be about really streamlining some of the processes or something like that, rather than about kind of that more open and flexible development, which can be done with the other mentor types. And then the final, the final version that is the most common one is the peer-to-peer mentoring. So this type of mentoring includes an experienced officer, a more experienced officer, or detention house staff training and supporting newer ones. So that is more, again, similar to the internal one. It's more about that buddy system in a way. It's supporting somebody in the onboarding. It's kind of showing them the ropes. Here, it's really, really important that the peer-to-peer mentors understand that it's not just about taking them into what real life is like after training, but actually it's also about trying to stick to the training when they come to the institution. Because when new officers start at their facilities, quite often they get told, oh, you just come to training, now forget all of that because this is what it's really like here. And that's exactly what shouldn't be happening in any of these mentor types. So when it comes to peer-to-peer mentoring, it's really important to then give that extra training to show, okay, why is that important? Why is it important that we've trained them this way? Why should they stick to that training? How can we support them in adapting the training to the reality, but also in maybe adapting the reality to what the training was like? And within peer-to-peer, it's also really important how trust is built within that, and to understand that, yes, it's a great support. It can give that low threshold support for the onboarding. It's not as formal as the other mentor types. It can be also done more casually, but at the same time, the outcomes need to be clear. So is it just about supporting new staff and feeling comfortable, confident, and part of the colleagues, for example, then peer-to-peer can be really useful. But at the same time, it can also have disadvantages, such as if there are staff shortages, it might not be taking place. The new staff might not feel continuously supported. It might not have a specific outcome at the end of it. So all of this really depends on what your needs are, what you want to achieve with the mentoring. And we're explaining that in greater detail in the handbook. Next slide, please. So we also have been talking to Sindbad a lot, and what we really, really see as the best benefit of mentoring is moving from talents and skills to strengths. So talents are natural talents that are innate and often early recognizable. So that is something that, maybe you see a child that is very good with music and can identify tones very quickly, or somebody else is naturally better at sports and can pick up sports very quickly. So these are talents. Then there are skills that are learned abilities. So that's something that you've been taught to do. Sometimes they can build on existing talents. It might be easier for you to learn that skill if you've learned, if you have a talent for it, but you can also learn these abilities and skills. It might just be harder if you don't have a talent for it. And all of that can then move to strengths. So there it's its skills is these abilities that set you apart, and is developed through the combination of existing talents, continuous practice and learning, and experience. Next slide, please. So as you can see here with the example, so talent with the musicality, which I already prompted, is natural feeling for it. And then a strength would be interpreting complex pieces, being able to compose, being able to listen certain tones and understand tones very quickly and naturally, and training yourself to do that as well. With regards to empathy and communication, that's about, for example, natural feelings for emotions, high emotional intelligence, having a really good feeling for other people and how another person might be feeling right now. And that can move to strengths of being able to motivate others, being able to dissolve and resolve conflicts, leading teams because you understand how these people feel and you can understand their needs and tensions perhaps, or potentials for conflict better, and you can prevent them. And why I'm presenting this is because within mentoring, we see exactly that. We see that people can move from existing talents, the mentees, with the learning of skills and certain abilities to really their strengths, because every mentee is different. And that is also what you need in detention facilities. You don't need a copy paste of the same person, because also the people that you're working with, the people who are incarcerated, are also very different. And somebody might be getting on very well with one kind of person and not so well with another. And so it's really important to identify what are the strengths, what are the talents, and then how can we move them to strengths of these people, of the new staff. And that is where mentoring really can make a huge difference. Next slide, please. And now I would like to introduce 4 coaching structures very quickly. These are structures that we recommend to be used in mentoring sessions. They are really useful to help guide a mentor through a good mentoring session to support a mentee meaningfully. And we've seen these 4 used quite broadly, and I will explain them in more detail. But again, these are also explained in detail in our handbook. And within that, we are also advising on how often should you be having mentoring conversations, what kind of setup what can they look like. We talk a little bit about different types of sessions, which I will also introduce later. So next slide, please. So the first one I wanted to introduce is CLEAR. That can be a really useful framework at the start of a mentoring relationship to build that trust. Sometimes mentees don't want to engage with the mentoring relationship. They might not be so interested in it, especially if it's a mandatory program. However, it's still recommended in social mentoring and in staff mentoring generally, not only in these settings, that it's still mandatory because it still affects mentees positively, even if they didn't want to engage. And we have actually references for this in studies as well. And so within the CLEAR framework, that's exactly about trying to maintain that and start that relationship on clear goals. And what is this actually about? What are we trying to set up? What are you needing from me? Maybe you, as the mentee, don't have kind of ideas. You might not want to engage much. And so this can help you to identify that. It's also about certain limitations. So I cannot promote you. I cannot get you to move to a different prison, for example, or to a different detention facility, but I can support you in personal development. I can support you in moving certain talents of yours into strengths. And you start with the contract, identifying that. You then move over to listening and actively listening to the mentees' concerns, to their perspectives, to their current challenges, to their final aspirations, etc. To then explore reflection, explore their beliefs, to get to know them better. Then you move to action. So that's really then about, okay, we've talked about what I can and can't do. I've listened to your needs, your beliefs, your challenges, your goals. I've kind of questioned these more critically to understand them a bit more in depth. And then we're developing a plan out of that for the mentoring period. And this is then continuously evaluated and revised, whether that is still a valid and good action plan. Next slide, please. The next framework is Fuel. So that is also a useful framework in mentoring conversations that is used at the start of a mentoring relationship. And that's more about behaviors and motivation. So that can be, again, how can I support a mentee that might not want to engage so much? How can I support their attitudes and their motivation? So again, it starts with framing the conversation. What are we here for? What are we trying to do within this mentoring relationship? Then it's about understanding the mentee better. What are their needs? What are their attitudes and beliefs? What do they get motivated by? Because that's exactly how you can then push them perhaps further in their personal development. Then we move to exploring. So really together with the mentee, into envisioning a future state and setting SMART goals. So these are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. This is really useful to then break things down a little bit to achieve these goals. And then it's laying out the plan. So what are then the next steps? How do we get there? How can we continue moving you from one place where you're currently at to your goal? And this should again be revised. Next slide, please. Then now I'm going to introduce two commonly used frameworks for established mentoring relationships. So T-GROW first, and both of these, so T-GROW and also the next one, Oscar, are used by unlocked graduates. The aim in T-GROW is more about short-term goals within established relationships. So you start with clarifying the topic. So what is going on? Why are you coming here? What is your current challenge? Let's really understand the situation you're in. Then you move to goals. So again, we work with these SMART goals to make it very specific, to make it quite clear. So where do we want to get to? Where do you want to get to? Then it's about the reality. So what is sort of the difference between the current state and these goals? Where are the challenges here? What could be detrimental to reach these goals? Then you move to options. So that's about brainstorming options and strategizing to close that gap. So how can we make it smaller? What would be, maybe you can draw up sort of stepping stones. So the first thing would be this, or you can start with the goal and then work your way sort of down. And then it's about drawing specific action plans. So, okay, we have the options in terms of like what we need to achieve, but what do you specifically as the mentee need to do to achieve that? Next slide, please. And the final framework that I wanted to introduce is OSCAR. Sometimes you will also see that with a C. It is also an established mentoring relationship framework, this time though for more long-term goals. So this is about starting with the outcome, so defining the result actually. What is it that we want to achieve? And this could be, in a year's time or something like that. And then it's about evaluating the scale and reviewing reality. So that's similar to before. You try and understand the gap. Where are we right now? What is it that is going to need to happen before we achieve this outcome? Then it's about understanding the know-how of the mentee. So what are their current skills? What are the current resources? What else do they need? Because if it's a long-term goal, then it might be beyond the current abilities or opportunities of the mentee. So how else can we identify those and get that support? And then it's about affirming and supporting specific actions. So affirming that mentee you have these strengths, you can create this action, and supporting them with also, again, setting those goals and implementing the actions. And then again, similar to all of the other frameworks, it's about regularly reviewing the process. Next slide, please. So on the following slides, as the final part, I also wanted to speak about different types of sessions that we recommend. Again, these are highlighted more and more in the handbook that we will share. But we start with the one-to-one sessions or also individual session theory that is used by unlocked graduates. So these are individualized and adaptive sessions and give an opportunity for mentors to focus on individual issues. So this is exactly where these frameworks that I've been speaking about come in. And it allows for that flexibility and personalized support. It also supports trust and relationship building because you can have that safe space and also brave space where mentees can be their truest self and also can speak freely. And it allows to build that relationship. It's also about feedback and addressing concerns directly. So it gives an opportunity to speak about challenges. It gives an opportunity to give the mentee constructive feedback on how to handle situations maybe differently or better. And also it provides a space to address potential issues of staff well-being. So if you are noticing that your mentee might be more agitated or something similar, then it can give you that opportunity in individual sessions to really dive into what is going on beneath the surface. Next slide, please. So one-to-one sessions combine sort of mentoring and coaching in a way. So they give that kind of advice and guidance, but also it's about like asking the right questions, being quite specific about certain outcomes and next steps. It's about encouraging reflection of challenges at work. It's about setting goals. And again, you can use different coaching frameworks for that, as I've already introduced. And also, these individual sessions can sometimes not be down to the framework, because it might be that you have an individual session and your mentee comes and they're extremely upset because they've recently been in a traumatic incident or something else has happened. And then it's also perfectly fine to kind of say, okay, today is not a goal setting day. Today is about building support, building trust, well-being. So it's also giving that space for that flexibility of a mentor having that decision and opportunity to work with the mentee. And the structure is 45 to 60-minute sessions. We recommend them bi-weekly at the very beginning. So, every 2 weeks. Yeah, is bi-weekly. There we go. So you can then really have that opportunity to get to know the mentee at the start and then continue their development. And the start is that the mentee brings a current challenge or current challenges. Then the mentor will help through the guidance of the frameworks to reflect on the current situation, on the reality, and then ask the mentee on possible solutions and goals to find them themselves. And then it's about that goal setting and then continuously reflecting on it. And with bi-weekly sessions, they can also be kind of smaller because it might be that the challenges at the start are quite big in terms of like the mentee doesn't really know and understand the system yet, but at the same time, it could be quite quickly resolvable. So then you can move further more quickly as well. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of a practice that we are also advising or using and implementing in the guidebook. So this will be, for example, a practice for mentors to hold a one-to-one session. Within that, we always have the learning objectives, so exploring one-to-one sessions and then using own active listening and relationship building skills. And then here it's not as clear, but you will see it in the general handbook that we also have quite clear success checks. So here I wouldn't say they're necessarily super on point, but usually success checks could then also be very, very specific, turning your having an open stance, for example, during active listening exercises, nodding to show active listening, repeating and summarizing key points as it says here. So all of this can be really, really important to have something specific for people to hold on to when they don't really know how to react in a situation. And then there will always be two descriptions, one for the learner, in this case, always the mentor, and then for the mentee. That is always two mentors that are being trained together who are then swapping roles after some time. So they have the opportunity to be in the learner position. Next slide, please. And then we also advise for group sessions to take place, usually, again, could be bi-weekly, could also be monthly. These are between a group of mentees and a mentor. Ideally, of course, it would be useful if it's all the mentees that one mentor supports. So that could be, 6 different mentees, for example, or it could be a fraction of all the mentees that they support. So they might be supporting 15. It could be 5 of them together in a group session. And it's there to support the one mentee specifically through peer support. So it's structured in 60-minute sessions. You start with a kickoff where one mentee that is previously already identified and has been sort of talked to by the mentor introduces a challenge of theirs and has an opportunity, gives an opportunity to the others to ask clarifying questions. From then on, the mentor only really becomes a facilitator of the session and supports the structure, but doesn't interfere or give their own advice. So then from after understanding the challenge and the situation of one mentee, there is a silent reflection of the other mentees of the group members where they can write down ideas, more questions about it and what they would do. Then there is a group discussion where the group can ask those questions, can give this feedback to the mentee who brought a challenge, to the presenter, to encourage them to try different ideas and solutions. And then finally, there's feedback and reflection from the original presenter. So within that, there's 3 roles. Again, the mentor who is facilitating the session but not contributing, the presenter who is a selected mentee who brings a challenge, and the group members who are tasked with trying to give that support. And within that, it's really important that the mentee who's presenting switches. So it could be that one month it's person A, the next month it's person B presenting a challenge, but that the mentor has already spoken to that mentee and they are aware that they will be presenting at this monthly group session, for example. Next slide, please. And within that, the theory is that it's building teamwork. It's a support system with the other mentees. It gives the participants the opportunity to work together through issues and also to switch perspectives, perhaps. It encourages to build that support and peer support, and also to value cooperation within that as well. It teaches critical skills, trying to, again, switch perspectives, then also to actively listen, to manage conflicts, because you are suddenly in different situations that you might have been in anyway, but you haven't been able to think about it from an outsider's point of view, and that can also help you. And it's creating a reflective and solution-oriented environment. Next slide, please. So within the elements, very quickly, again, we've got this in our handbook as well. There is the facilitator introduction, then there is the presentation, then there are clarifying questions, then there's silent idea generation of the group members. Finally, we have a group discussion where the presenter remains quiet, and then there is the reaction of the presenter to that. Next slide, please. So the final thing that I just wanted to put on here, and again, we'll share the slides with you, are core questions that you should ask yourselves if you're interested in creating mentoring support and mentoring programs in your institution or in a facility or in your country. If this is something that you think should be implemented, then it's really about asking yourself some of these questions. What is the aim of it? How should they be selected? What should be their skills? How do we train them? How are they assessed, etc.? And you can ask them to yourself, you can ask them to colleagues to really dive into that as well. And again, we're really open to trying to push such projects further. So we're happy after we've shared the handbook to get your feedback, but also to support you if you're interested in bringing this further. And you might have seen already, we've sent out emails in regards to the 3 dates in November, the 10th of November, and then the 13th and 14th, I think. And you can then register for idea generation. So if you're interested in implementing a similar project, this is something that we're going to be working on, and we'll send that out again as well. Next slide.